think we're all here. We've got the recording going. That was my next thing. Everybody's pressed the got it button. And so I think we'll kick off on time. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. First off, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting here tonight on the lands of the Sonawas and Qualicum First Nations, and we appreciate their stewardship of these lands and allowing us to live, work, and play in such a beautiful part of Vancouver Island. To start off this evening, a couple of things of note for all of us, for whatever aspect of education and the sector that we work in. This is Education Week, and some will have seen Minister Singh's acknowledgement and celebration and her recognition that there's so many that participate in making this sector such a wonderful and powerful experience. So to all of us, a pat in the back for each of our different contributions to our work, and recognizing that this is Education Week. And not as quite as a happy note, Friday will be the National Day of Mourning. This is an annual event, April 28th. It happens to be this Friday this year, where we recognize workers who are killed on the job. And this is no one wants to have any member of their family go out to work in their day today and then not come home. So for local folks, we used to have a very local CUPE led recognition of that, but it's now more of a collective affair with the 911 district. CUPE members leading at the Parksville Beach area by the play park, the kids park, and it will be at 5:30 if folks would like to be present to recognize the National Day of Mourning. So to commence now with our business of the evening, first I'd like a mover and a seconder, please, trustees, for adoption of the agenda as presented. Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Seconded, Trustee Young. All those in favor, trustees? Thank you very much. And approval of our consent agenda this evening. Number of items listed, mostly receipts and news releases, but some reports as well from Tribune Bay and Building and Learning. So could I have a mover and a seconder to accept the consent agenda? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg, seconded by Trustee Kurland. All those in favor? Carried. No delegations this evening, no business arising this evening, and I do see the logo, and there is his face, Mr. Matt Wood of Mount Arrowsmith Teachers Association.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Eve, for recognizing the Day of Mourning that'll happen on Friday. And so that is 5:30 down at the Parksville Park, where that'll be happening. So I appreciate that. The other reminder I wanted to put out tonight was the MATA annual general meeting is happening May 16th. And that's where all union members will be coming together to elect positions, including my own, for the next year. And so that happens on Tuesday, May 16th. So all union members, if there's something happening that day, they'll be heading over to do that AGM. So I just want to make notice of that moving forward. I've got a pretty light agenda, actually, because that's really that's all I wanted to talk about tonight. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Matt, and good luck in May 16th and the elections. And I kind of happen to know where it is, and I don't know if we're allowed to creep it, but I know the back door.
Yes, it is. It is out there in your local. It will be happening at the Angus Bay Community Hall.
And I have keys. So, don't lock the door.
Delicious food. I can attest that.
Yes, best wishes and good luck. QP, Ms. Brown, I see you right in the middle of my screen. Welcome, and your report this evening.
Thank you, Chair. The union would like to express our gratitude for these opportunities to share reports with you on these evenings. We've been super busy this past month, thus allowing for a short reporting. We've been busy in a good way because we're already getting prepared for the upcoming school year. And there's going to be some changes for our support workers on assignments, and we're really excited for the change. We'd also like to reiterate what you said earlier about the day of mourning, Friday, April 28th. But I wanted to share with you my story. As a child, even though it happened well before I was born, I remember hearing stories about the building of the Second Narrows Bridge and the tragedy that happened in 1958. Very briefly, during construction, as a crane stretched from the north side of the new bridge to join the two chords of the unfinished arc, several spans collapsed. 79 workers plunged 30 meters into the water. 18 were killed either instantly or shortly thereafter, possibly drowned by the heavy tool belts that they were wearing. In December 1990, over 30 years later, Bill C-223, which is the Workers' Mourning Day Act, passed, making April 28, 1991, the first government-recognized National Day of Mourning. I think we all stand together in unity to remember workers who have suffered death or injury in their workplace, and I thank you all for your thoughts on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Brown, appreciate, and yes, hopefully we'll have a nice turnout in the park in recognition of this very time that needs to be remembered for sure. Take time to remember. Deepak, Ms. Carrie Kadawaske.
Hi, Deepak, we would like to remind SD69 parents and guardians and their families and staff that they are welcome to attend the keynote presentation that's happening tomorrow night at Bolinas with Misha Oak, the understanding and supporting 2SL LGBTQ plus community members and family. And Misha is the same speaker who spoke at the CUPE, so we heard really great things about him. And that's tomorrow at 6:30 at Bolinas. Deepak would like to thank our secretary, Jessica, for organizing a CPRC and AED course that was offered to SD69 parents and guardians. The original date was rescheduled, but we do invite all parents and guardians to watch for their emails because we're going to offer that again, free training for them. Thank you to the district for inviting and including a group of parents and guardians to participate in the recent strategic planning sessions and budget meetings. We appreciate our district's transparency and inclusion of all stakeholders and key players in our kids' education journey. We also really enjoyed being at Pete the Cat and welcoming new families to the district. Finally, Deepak has started accepting nominations for the 2023-2024 awesome volunteer positions of Deepak President and Deepak Vice President, and those elections will take place on May 17th at the Deepak meeting. That's it for us. Thanks.
Thanks, Carrie, and thank you for all your work as in your role at Deepak. You guys have had a great year, awesome year this year for sure. No question period written comments that we received, so we'll move on to the 2023-2024 annual budget bylaw, and to keep the flow of things going, possibly Secretary Treasurer Amos can do your presentation first, and then we will entertain the motions that we can proceed with for approval of the budget bylaw. So over to you, Mr. Amos.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Flynn. So before you in your package up is the prescribed documents that includes the 23-24 annual budget. And so you've got before you the same format that you've seen in the past. It speaks to the various funds in the schedules. Schedule 2 being the operating fund, Schedule 3 being the special purpose funds, and Schedule 4 being the capital funds. Those three numbers come forward to form up the amended bylaw, or sorry, the annual bylaw. And so you can see in statement 2, the expenditures are summed together to create the bylaw or create the motion for 68,095,158. So that's where the numbers come from. A little bit about the budget process that we've done to date for, again, just a reminder and be transparent here. So budget discussions start in around January of every year for the annual process, with the understanding that we need to pass the bylaw, or we need to pass the motion for the budget by June 30th so that we can submit it to the ministry. So 3 documents that are following that follow the financial or the budget documents themselves are 2 summaries that show the budget, the operating budget and the special purpose funds in the form of program related, which is in my documents, it's page 35. And then also we've got the revenues and the expenditures in the form of object object codes on page 34. So teasing out some of the information that's on those pages in terms of the actual conversations that we've had for the past 3 months, recognizing that we had conversations prior to the funding announcement in March. So we had conversations in in February, including survey results. And then when we received the confirmation of the funding announcement in March, then we had follow-up discussions in April. We shared out last week at a special board meeting the summation of staff's recommendations for the budget, and that is on page 36. And so again, at the time I expressed it in the form of, these are the areas that need to be addressed within the budget, and the pressures ongoing, the revenue items that will support some of those pressures. It created a shortfall or a deficit, as it were, or a presumptive deficit of 515,000. We addressed some responses to that in terms of shifting some costs out of the operating fund into newly announced funds, AFG, the food program, etc. We also addressed some of the things that we needed to do with our current staffing and our current supply budgets in terms of how to get to that shortfall. And so we overcompensated the shortfall. And so we presented a potential response of about $840,000, which left a cushion that we could add back of about $325,000. And so of that $325,000, again, for the budget, embedded in the budget is the consideration for basically $225,000 in tech refresh that will get added to the Evergreen program that's currently in the budget. And then a White Fleet additional White Fleet contribution against the one that's in there now. So that'll bring the White Fleet refresh to an annual budget of about $200,000. So that would effectively use up that cushion and allowing us to get onto some of those tech and capital refreshes that we spoke to. So again, framing the discussion last week on these were the pressures, these are the items that we can do to address those pressures, and these are the additional things that we want to add. The budget was prepared with that in mind. So then flipping forward into the budget summary document, you can see I've only in the comment field, I've only indicated those things that are of consequence against those things that we wanted included on that last page. And so recognizing that the operating grant is showing an increase of 1.982 or 83 rounded. Predominantly that's the wage lifts that are going into the salary for teachers, principals, educational assistants, support staff, and other professionals. So the bulk of that money is being spent in that way, but you're also seeing the reflection of the revenue adjustments for offshore tuition, for rentals and leases, and for investment income that I've addressed on that summary document. And then again, recognizing that some of those items that we've expressed as staffing adjustments are the ones I'm showing as reflective against the teachers, as reflective against the educational assistants, and as reflected against some other areas that are showing up on the object portion. Suffice to say, what you're seeing is the expression of those of that summary document that I was presented earlier. So what you have before you obviously is a request, as it were, or a budget bylaw in the amount of $68,095,158, which is before you.
Thank you, Mr. Amos. So for a little refresh for trustees, our first part of our motions, give us all 3 readings tonight, and then we proceed through the separate 3 readings as we go. So to open up the floor, we need to move and second the first, and then we can open the floor to questions. So I would move that the Board of Education School District 69 Qualicum give all 3 readings to approve the annual budget bylaw for the 2023-2024 fiscal year at its regular board meeting of April 25th, 2023. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Are there any questions, trustees? Trustee Austin.
Thanks, Ron. So I have a couple of questions and then I may have a comment after that. One is under the additional items to be considered, transportation route software, $100,000. It says one time and ongoing. What exactly is the ongoing?
It's 100 the first year, 100 the second year, and then annual licensing and maintenance fees that often comes with software. Like all software, you buy the product up front or over the course of its installation. And then there generally tends to be annual maintenance costs beyond that. So 200,000 for the software, ongoing costs of I believe in it, and certainly the director of ops can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's to the tune of $25,000 ongoing thereafter.
So it's $200,000 for the first 2 years and then what, $20,000 a year, $10,000 a
20,
year?
that's what I'm getting. Yeah, so
25.
that's the $25,000 ongoing
Cool.
thereafter.
Okay,
Cool.
great. I'm sorry.
Okay, yep.
Great, thank you. And then my next question is around the exempt staff lift. I know you have that budgeted as something we have to cover. We haven't yet heard from the province on that. We may hear about it as early May. So if in fact the province does end up covering it, and we don't know that yet, but that's the hope from all the school districts, that would put $340,000 back into our budget that hadn't been. Is that right?
Correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this is just a little one. It's not reflected here in the budget. I'm going to assume we're going to continue to talk about it in finance and ops, and that's the $25 recommended application fee for bus passes. Is that that's not part of this budget? It's not being considered here. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's not in the budget. I'm not planning on it, but and Superintendent Jory will speak to it a little bit later on, kind of thing. So no, it's not reflective in the budget. This budget doesn't passing this budget one way or another doesn't it's not reflective. So yeah, the motion obviously before you is about the budget, and it's not reflective in the budget at this point.
Okay, thanks, Ron. So here's my comment, fellow trustees. And that's, I find this hanging in the air, the exempt staff lift of potentially $340,000 is still an unknown. And as such, I feel like our budget isn't really complete, and we haven't had the opportunity then to have discussions on what that means if we are able to put that $340,000 back into the budget. What I would like us to consider is not doing all 3 readings tonight, but however, doing what we've done in the past, which is pass a motion to release the funding needed for the staffing piece. That always needs to be done in May and June, and that's the bulk of the budget anyway. And just give ourselves time, to the end of May or so, and give see if the province comes through with what their answer is on that lift, because I think that goes to our budget discussions as well.
Just for past history, and it's a PSEC decision that would be fed to us through BCPC. School districts have always been responsible or carried the weight of the funding of exempt staff. This is the first time in my extended time as a trustee that actually PSEC has come to the table with money this past year, 2022, 2023. So to think maybe that would come, I think it's quite wishful. And yes, we could wait another month to see if it actually came true, but I don't think at the end of the day, if it comes through, then it's good news. And we can look at the amended budget and things like that in January, February timing, when we know kids in seats and things like that. But this one has always been on the district budgets for all these many years, and we've always heard districts complain You didn't fund our exempt staff. You didn't ask us, we had to pay for the lifts in our exempt staff. So this is not out of the ordinary, building this into our annual budget. But I just leave it that as a little bit of history. Trustee Young.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote in favor of this. I think a budget is a point in time document. Good budgeting means that you kind of under guess at the income and kind of over guess a little bit at the expenses so that you have good news in the future. I do that with my home budget. But it's just a point in time document. And what it should show is how the strategic plan, and ultimately ours will, the strategic plan then references the funding that we do. And in this case, I think our budget does do that in the sense that, as we heard at the last meeting, we have tried our best to support our students in what they need. And I feel very comfortable to pass all three readings tonight. I think that senior staff have worked very hard on this. And yes, there will be changes. We know this because there's going to be little pots of money that will come in. There'll be some expenses that maybe we underrepresented. A budget is just a point in time guess. So I'm good with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Trustee Austin, I think you've spoken, so I'll see if any other trustees want to speak to the motion of three readings. Any other hands? I don't see Trustee Kellogg, Trustee Kurland. So back to Trustee Austin.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate everything you said, Elaine, and I do think it's a good budget and it's a thoughtful budget, and I appreciate our process that we've had about it. I have to admit, I was a little surprised because it was the first time I had seen this just within the last couple of weeks, was the additional items to be considered in terms of the transportation route software and the White Fleet and whatnot. And I just think, for me, I'm more comfortable. We have the time. We don't have to pass it tonight. I'm more comfortable with giving it that little bit of thoughtful time, particularly. And I understand your position, Eve, in terms of the history and traditionally what happens with the exempt staff list. But I have to say, I heard something a little bit different when we were at our BCPC meeting yesterday. There actually seemed to be a little bit of optimism in the air. And so I would like that optimism to be able to play itself out. And then we can have a look at this too, perhaps at the end of May, with that, through that lens. And if it doesn't happen, well, then it doesn't. But it's not, as far as I'm concerned, it's not going to make a difference to our operations as long as we release the staffing piece.
Trustee Kurland?
Yeah, it's this is one of those things that is, requires a lot of thought. I had many conversations with Secretary Treasurer Amos over this, and we project a certain amount of students that are leaving, and we may actually end up getting more. But the problem here is that if we don't build a budget based on our lowest possible values, then if the hopeful revenues that may appear don't come, then we're locked into a spiral that can be very dangerous for us. And so, with great deliberation, I'm going to vote to go ahead and pass this budget. But I did have a lot of considerations about the software that we're doing and how we're doing that. And there's a funding, that has to come from, parents for buses and stuff like that, even though that's not being figured right now. So, I really appreciate the work that everybody's gone into doing this. And, it's always a difficult place, you know, for this, because we don't want to get caught short. And like like trustee Young is saying, it is a point in time. So, you know, with trepidation, I'm going to vote to pass this budget.
Secretary Treasurer Amos?
Sorry, and I'm not trying to convince otherwise, but again, recognizing the points made by the trustees up to this juncture is absolutely, this is a point in time budget. We know full well that there's going to be some other changes that will happen in the next week, possibly with an announcement from certain funding kind of thing. We don't know all the funding at this juncture, let alone the exempt compensation. But again, point in time, we know what we do have today. We know that kids will come and kids will go. We don't necessarily hold up the process just because of those unknown areas. We did the planning. It was, again, it was thoughtful, it was transparent, and certainly we can do the best we can with the information we're given as of this moment, sort of thing. And so that's where the budgeting point in time comes from. But again, I'm not trying to convince you one way or another, but we will never always have a complete set of facts doing this, based on the fact that the budget is evolving over the course of the year. It's the best we have right now. And again, I'll just leave it at that, recognizing that we will have a second opportunity to address, well, actually more than two. I shouldn't even say that. In the guidance of the amended budget, we'll obviously we'll know the recalc funding base in September enrollment, but that's not to say that we don't make adjustments going into the fall anyways, because we will meet staffing against the needs that are there in the kids. All we're really doing is basically allowing the system to go forward, to release ourselves of the obligation of preparing a budget and to carry on with the plans that we've sort of enacted up to this point, to allow staffing to continue, to allow planning to continue, to allow, again, planning beyond the staffing implications of purchasing software or of licensing and that kind of nature. It's really about releasing that obligation hanging over our heads right now of, will it get passed? And knowing that we, again, as staff, we'd like some stability too, in terms of being able to plan for next fall.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amos. Is there any different point that you want to make, Trustee Austin?
Well, I just wanted to respond to that, you know, I don't think what I'm proposing in terms of releasing the staffing component is going to hold up the work that staff does. And so it's just being able to have the time to have a little think about some of these other things, particularly the last couple of items that I mentioned came up, you know, kind of late in the game as far as I'm concerned. So I think staff can continue to do the work that they need to do around staffing if we release the staffing component, and just take a pause and a breath while we wait on the province to hear what might be coming down the pipe on that, and to look at this. It's a great budget. I'm, you know, relatively happy with it, but I would like to have that pause. So I will not be voting in favor of having this reading.
Associate Superintendent Wilson.
I just want to remind us all that one of the curiosities around the software for our transportation was brought to the table, I want to say 2, maybe 3 years ago. Actually, I think it was prior to COVID. And we were feeling that we didn't have an accurate count of students on the bus. We didn't have an accurate understanding of what our routes should be. And we need to modernize our transportation. So I know it was brought forward a couple of years ago, and then COVID hit and all kinds of things just changed in terms of our priorities and where we needed to be. And I think what we've done is resurfaced, certainly under the leadership from Mr. Monroe, around how we can modernize our system and actually develop some cost efficiencies within the transportation department. And so we did have this dialogue a little while ago. And I think what we've done is surfaced it again to be able to say, how can we do it? And, you know, I know that we've spoken of the system in terms of helping us move forward and planning for next year with our staffing. I think that's the same when we start to put other systems in place that are going to help our system. And even though we pass a budget and even leaving it a month or 2 months until the end of June, you can't start to do some of those planning because as senior staff, we start to think about, well, I wonder if we've got permission to be able to move forward in this particular area. And all of a sudden it's the end of June and you can't put some of those things into play for the new year, for our September. So again, I am not for or against, I just wanted to remind us that we'd had some conversations around transportation before. And if I can be really honest, I thought we actually were already moving on that and actually doing that prior to COVID, and things just changed in terms of our priorities.
Thanks, Ms. Wilson. Trustee Kurland again?
Yeah, it's just a point of information that if this first reading or this has to be passed unanimously, correct?
No, we have to just give all 3 readings tonight. The first motion allows us to give all 3 readings. It does not have to be unanimous. That's the capital bylaw.
Okay, so if one of our trustees votes against it, it's still we move into the readings and
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And then if you wanted to amend, something like if Julie's question to pass the first part, for staffing and then deliberate part of the other, that's a separate motion?
Correct.
Okay,
That would have to form a separate motion.
all right.
Okay, seeing no further hands, I'm sorry, Superintendent Dr. Jory.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was debating in my own head whether I should weigh in or not. And I think I want to mention in regard to the exec comp, it's not a number that really changes the scope of the budget. There are a lot of variables that will introduce themselves over the next several months. And what I found with government is, the more I state or a prediction about their direction, the more certain I am about that, the more likely it is to not go my way. So I'm going to intentionally state that there's no way they're going to fund it. And then hopefully raise the odds that they do. It just, if not for nothing else, to make me look bad. But I think that if that's what's hanging this up, I don't really think that that's the biggest or a significant reason to hold up the works, given all the variables that are out there. It is a point in time. It's a conservative response, and I think it was a judicious one. And I think staff would like the latitude to get going on a number of fronts. In regard to the $25, I was asked to have that conversation with DPAC. I did do a little bit of a presentation and take questions, and it felt like that conversation went well. It's not like they wanted to carry me around on their shoulders afterwards, but the purpose behind it was very clear, and I felt that there was a great deal of understanding and recognition of the value of it in regard to assisting us with our planning processes and getting a more accurate count, and which would lead to ultimately better service and potentially even more courtesy riders, which is really, I think, one of the advantages of getting at it. So I'll mention again during my report if there's a need for conversation on that topic, either now or later. That is fine.
Thank you, Dr. Jory. See no further hands. I'll call a question on the motion that we give all 3 readings of the annual budget bylaw for the 2023-2024 fiscal year this evening. Trustees, all those in favor? Carried. And I would move that the Board of Education.
Can you please ask for opposed, because then that cannot be recorded?
Okay, opposed, trustee. Thank you.
Thank you.
That the Board of Education give first reading to adopt the School District 69 annual budget bylaw in the amount of $68,095,158 for the 2022, 2023, 2024 fiscal year. Could I have a seconder, please, trustees? Thank you, trustee Young. Seeing no further hands up, all those in favor? Carried and in opposition, contrary minded, trustee Austin. That the Board of Education gives second reading to adopt the School District 69 annual budget bylaw in the amount of $68,095,158 for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Could I have a seconder, please, trustees? Thank you, trustee Kurland. All those in favor, trustees? Contrary minded, trustee Austin. And that the Board of Education give third and final reading to adopt the School District 69 annual budget bylaw in the amount of $68,095,158 for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Could I have a seconder, trustees? Thank you, trustee Kurland. And the question, all those in favor? Carried and in opposition, trustee Austin. Thank you very much, folks. We're set to go for maybe good news in May, early good news, and then maybe some pockets of money that come our way, but I think our pathway is sound and is set. And what would be better is if we have more kids in September that present themselves at our front doors. So wonderful to be able to move ahead. Further outcome of our presentation by the Dow's family, and in your package is page 37. Dr. Marcus Schluschen, who presented to us on cell tower and radiation and a few other concerns that they have had. It was a very interesting presentation, raised various issues for us, but they have returned to us with the ask that we write a letter to the regional district. Now, I'm not 100% sure why they would want us to be writing to the regional district. Our other letters have also mentioned, just for people to be reminded, the precautionary principle. Those letters were actually to the service providers, TELUS in particular. So I don't have an answer as to why the regional district is where they wish us to express concern, but I open the floor for a discussion, reaction, or whatever. The Dows aren't here. They're away for 8 weeks in Ontario, so I can't quite get to them personally to ask them who, what, and where at the regional district we're directing this request, but I don't know if there is an appetite of trustees for having us take a position with them on cell communication. And trustee Austin.
I was just gonna say, I don't know, I'm going to assume here, and we all know that can be dangerous, but I have a feeling the public comment period to reply to the provider has passed, and now it sits at the table of the RDN to make a decision. And so I believe that's probably why we're being asked to write to the RDN as opposed to the provider.
Okay.
My second comment would be, I think it's no secret, I have a concern about cell towers and the overuse of cell towers. I do prescribe to the precautionary principle. So I would love to write a letter, to the RDN talking about how as a school district, we are concerned about our children. I understand, it is 1,000 meters and the Canadian Health, says 500 meters or something. But again, I go back to the precautionary principle. So that's just where I stand on that.
Other comments, trustees, on whether we take action on this item? Trustee Young.
Could you remind us, Chair Flynn, of what previous actions the board has taken on cell towers? Because I'd like to have some consistency, but and I can't quite remember. I don't remember that we'd written a letter before, but I could well be wrong.
We have written one. We had a discussion about the other one next to Arrowview, but we didn't proceed because we felt that, and our one letter that we wrote was definitely from the basis of the precautionary principles. that trustee Austin speaks to. It was premised, not, I can't say that we strongly came out and said we didn't vote for it or we didn't want it or anything like that, but I certainly think we put up our concern. But we did not answer to the Arrowview one. Dr. Elder was in the superintendent's chair at the time, and he was quite adamant about it, but the letter then came from him personally because we felt that Arrowview's safety situation and their cell service enhancement, so in case of emergency, helping the schools contact parents, we didn't proceed any further.
Thanks. That was my memory, but I don't.
I believe we've written actually two, because there was one out by what's now Qualicum Elementary, but it was Qualicum Middle at the time. And I think that was our first letter we wrote. They were proposing, and I think they put one right at the corner of Laburnum and Rupert. And that was our first one, and that was quite a while ago. And then there was one just on the other side of Oceanside, up behind the gas station there.
Yeah, but that one.
Oh, okay. I wasn't on the board at that time. That's why I don't remember it. Okay.
The Burnham one was more so to say that, yes, we were definitely opposed to it, but the one next to Oceanside, we put the letter in the format of the precautionary principle, in that we did not have evidence enough to state otherwise or take a stand, but it was a concern, and this was the stance we're taking. And then we did not write for Arrowview. Is there an appetite to write to the regional district? I'm not seeing any hands in favor.
My response, so.
Well, I guess as we did with Dr. Elder, as a private citizen, everybody has the opportunity to write to our public officials, and that we can proceed.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's what I'll be doing.
Thank you. Information item, superintendent's report. Dr. Jory, the draft strategic plan with little teasers.
Yeah, yes. I'll just give a bit of a general report, and then we'll slide into an update on the plan process. Greetings, everyone. It's Squirrel. Here we are in April, 6 weeks from our last regular public meeting of the board, though we have been together in all manner of meetings over the last few weeks for sure. Top of mind has been budget, as it is that time of year, and those of you who have been present, which is most of you here, have heard these discussions which have continued on this evening. Our transportation department has been hard at work planning for next year with the intention of rolling out some significant improvements, in addition to actively recruiting more bus drivers and introducing real-time text communication with parents. The team is moving to an electronic registration process that will get us off paper, keep student data intact to prevent the need for annual form collection, and open up months earlier, even tomorrow perhaps, to allow for more planning time. Well, we will not be on the routing software right away. That change will follow soon, with the potential benefit of more efficient routing that is mirrored AM to PM, GPS integration, and digital passenger manifests. We are very much looking forward to those benefits. There has been some recent discussion, as already raised today, of a $25 registration fee capped at $50 per household, which we think will keep our active rider list more accurate and may even open up more seats for courtesy riders, again, to be initiated as soon as tomorrow. If the board would like a pause on that, we would like some direction and some unanimity around that direction, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Monday, May 8th will be our final meeting of the Code of Conduct Working Group. We may postpone it, but it looks like the responses are coming back in approval of that date. This meeting was postponed for several weeks due to some scheduling issues, conflicts, admittedly a little bit of lost inertia. This last meeting will give the group a chance to get together one more time to give feedback on the latest template, the instructions we'll give our school principals, and the rollout process, which will give our schools a chance to adopt the new expectations over the next 12 months, depending on the state of their ongoing conversations and level of readiness. This means that schools whose content already matches the new criteria will be able to move into the new template and submit that information to the board this June, along with their consultation forms, as is our practice. But those schools who will need more time to do work with their stakeholders who need to build or choose an expectation matrix, who need to revise their language around consequences, will have some time to switch over in earnest, or to do that work in earnest before switching over. Of course, still doing our process as is our practice. This soft start also allows our principals to give more focus to our new school planning methodology and upcoming presentations. All of our schools have adopted the observable impact framework and have been in deep conversation with their staffs on what they want their students to do, what they will do to get them there, and the tasks and artifacts that will convince them that progress is in fact occurring. The school plan presentations will occur on Tuesday, May 9th, taking turns in their pod groupings concurrently in 2 rooms at Qualicum Commons, focusing on just one goal each and using a modified fishbowl strategy for feedback. They're very excited about presenting for the first time in a few years, very keen to get it right. We will be practicing and doing a bit of a walkthrough at our next leadership meeting. In regard to strategic planning at the district level, things are progressing very well, I think. We've collected survey information on our big questions from staff and parents back at the beginning of the school year, reviewed the data themes with student focus groups in the late fall, then took that information into 3 sessions with our group of 40 adult representatives who turned these into potential goals and outcomes in meetings during February and March. After some revisions by staff, these were brought back to the group in April, which also included students this time, for a check-in and additional suggestions. This next version is attached to the briefing note in this agenda package located starting on page 38. And if you wish to follow along, I'm going to switch screens here. You can see that our 4 draft goals are as follows: to learn, to give, to belong, and to grow. Notice that the order has been changed as a result of conversations on that last day. And belong has taken the place of lift, which seemed to make more and more sense the more that we thought about it. The draft outcomes, of course, are in the package, as you can see, as they currently stand. And some changes have come about from that last day feedback. There's been some bulking up of some concepts, some minor word changes and such. Probably 97% of it was as presented. But the one thing that I think you will all notice is, through further conversation with our Indigenous Education Department, we have elected to include the First Peoples Principles of Learning in the goals as a framework or a consideration, something to shape the way that our outcomes are interpreted. And it was interesting to move them into these categories because it really seemed to be a good fit. We did some switching around as a result of conversation, and probably got an even better match as a result. But it really felt like this information fit with the work that we had created as a result of that data collection and our conversations. To go back to the briefing note, what we want to see from our students is placed at the forefront. The action of the educators, the tasks and the artifacts are all part of the standard observable impact methodology. And for this process, we've included what the district will also do to support these processes. That gets named explicitly as well. I felt like that was a good way for us to do business, to have some, to use I think a Ron expression, some skin in the game as well. And of course, there's some more conversations to follow. When the superintendent and board have their upcoming meeting, we need to talk about, what the potential rollout looks like, the use of brochure or other publications, logo, potentially, and other branding options, and so on. And I do want to just share with everybody here, and I'll switch screens one more time, just a little bit of a teaser of what this might look like, this document might look like when it gets published. I've been working with a graphic designer, well, that's all you got, to come up with a format that is professional looking, attractive, and and really kind of elevates the content, to represent a significant organization like a school district in an appropriate manner. And I'm working on some a cover proposition, a student picture, a photograph that I saw at an art show of tidal pools. I'm going to try and frame that in with a collage of students doing learning inside, outside, different kinds of activities, alone and in groups, and then have the header and potentially new logo at the top. And of course, we'd like to talk a lot about that possible process the next time we get together. So yeah, it's moving along. We're looking forward to taking in more feedback starting after the presentation in the town hall June 6th on Zoom. And so when that is complete, we'll put those links out there and give people one more chance to kind of weigh in and get some information to the board in time for that June board meeting. So thank you, Sepqua. And before I just sign off, I'll just mention one last time before turn the floor over to Director Terpstra and Associate Superintendent Wilson. Want to close by thanking all staff for their hard work this April, providing such a thoughtful and effective learning environment for our students. Whether you complete payroll, repair door latches, shine floors, organize leader, support learning in any way, we appreciate your efforts very much. Again, hi Sepqua.
I think I blinked at the little snippet. Trustee Austin.
Thanks, Peter. And yeah, I want to thank everybody for their work with the strategic planning groups. It was really meaningful and very interesting and thoughtful. I particularly want to thank the parents and students who responded to the survey and the students who showed up at our last working group. So I think that really helped inform us. My question is, because you also mentioned in your summary, Peter, was this $25 fee? And you said if there was any feedback from trustees. So I'm wondering, do you want that feedback now or do you want it at the finance and ops?
Well, finance and ops is going to be a while. And part of the reason that we'd like to get going on all of our processes is to give our transportation department the most possible time to get organized, to collect all the registrations, to make any changes to the routing, all that, the sooner the better, and we don't want to hold them up. So actually, I think we would appreciate a little bit of a conversation at this point. And if there's an interest in putting a pause on that $25, we'd like to know tonight.
Okay, so is that okay through the chair if we have that discussion, or would you like to have it a little further down the agenda, or?
No, let's entertain it now. You've got your thoughts top of mind.
Okay.
So
Okay, thank you. I do have a problem with the $25 application fee. I can absolutely understand the dilemma. I can absolutely understand, what you're trying to address and trying to streamline things and get as much information as you can, and that will make for efficiency. So I absolutely understand that. For the maybe up to $40,000 that the $25 might bring in, I think it will pose hardship to a number of families. I think those hardships have been recognized by the province by bringing in their food grant money and giving it to the district, recognizing that children are coming to school hungry or not having lunches. We are in some really dire times right now, and our parents are really feeling it. And, for some parents, and I'm not even sure you're going to get the accurate data that you're expecting, because a lot of families are going to go $25. Well, little Johnny may or may not use the bus. I don't know, maybe they'll only use it a couple times a year, but I'll throw the $25 their way and do the application. So you're going to be getting those families that $25 or $50 isn't a lot to them, and yet their students still may not be using the bus a lot. And then you're going to be getting the families that $25 or $50 is a lot to them, but they're going to be having to give it second thought again, and maybe their little Johnny may only use the bus once or twice a week, but if they haven't done the application, their little Johnny isn't using the bus at all. So I do have a real concern around the $25. It doesn't seem like a lot to a lot of people, but boy, to the people it means something, it really means something to. And I would prefer that we just hold off on that. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Austin, trustee Kurland, then trustee Young, and then Kellogg.
I agree with trustee Austin. It's not, doesn't sound like a lot of money. You know, it's like the steaks are free, but we're charging for the gravy. And I know that I totally understand what this is going for. It's accurate ridership and everything else. But if there's some way that we can hold off on charging parents for this, you know, like it was capped at $50. I mean, if you have several children in the district, and yes, we want to know exactly how many people are riding the bus when. It's very important to know that, but if there's some way that we can defer the charge of this, then I would prefer that too, because, you know, a lot of parents, if they can't afford it, they're not going to speak up. You know, they might not speak up at all. And, you know, Laskeety, everybody's riding the bus, you know, so I just think that it's a, you know, I totally agree and understand the necessity for us to accurately, you know, be able to forecast what's going to happen on these buses and ridership. But I just, you know, hope that there's some other way that we can finance this program. It's my feeling.
Thank you, trustee Kurland, trustee Young.
My understanding from the finance and operations meeting was that the goal here is not to finance the $100,000. That's not what we're looking at.
No, it's not.
Goal is to make sure that that we're accommodating students who need to ride the bus. We're not accommodating empty seats, which is what I heard was we were running at about 70%. I'm wondering if we can mitigate some of this by doing some education around the rationale for needing to make a charge. And also, I know that if you're in a school and you can't afford a curricular activity, that there is a school fund that you can access. And I'm wondering if we could make that clear on whatever application form-y thing that we put out. I think having a rationale might help people to understand better our situation. And if we provide people with an opportunity to respond if they need to, then maybe that would mitigate things. Yeah, I certainly hear what Julie and well, trustee Austin and trustee Kurland are saying. I just wonder if we can do it a different way, that's all.
Trustee Kellogg.
Yeah, I just wondered, is there a hardship process if somebody is not able to pay the fee, but their student currently gets because we're just talking courtesy bus seats, is that right? Or is this for everybody?
No,
Just
we can,
courtesy
we
For
can only,
everybody?
no, we can only charge for courtesy bus riders.
Okay,
The district provides us with monies that ostensibly should cover most of our costs or some costs.
Right.
But this is for your courtesy rider who is outside walk limits or in a
so
program, cross boundary.
No, this is for all students that are applying for a bus pass, whether they're going to their catchment school or have applied for courtesy ridership. It's for all students that are applying for a bus.
Yeah, but to qualify for a bus pass, you have to be out of the walk limits.
so is there some confusion about, Peter, can you comment on that? What is it that what is it? Is it for all students or is it for all riders or just courtesy riders? I'm confused.
I saw Secretary Treasurer Amos with his hand up, but
Oh,
I'll
so-
answer the question. It is for registration. So anybody who is inside or outside the walk limit. If they want to ride the bus, they would be registering and paying the $25 fee. And if you had multiple kids, the second one maximum. So if you have 4 kids, you still pay the $50. That's what we're proposing.
Right.
You know, it's not budgetary. It's not, has nothing to do with our previous conversation. I do want to say, and I said this, by the way, at the FinOps meeting, philosophically, I agree completely. I don't like when the school district puts their hand in parents' pockets. I don't like it. I don't like collecting money. And if we're going to do that, I want it to be as simple and seamless as possible, and to be, you know, maintain our relationship and everyone's dignity. Yes, there are hardship programs. You can ask for us to cover them. Absolutely, that's possible. But to everyone's point, you know, some people don't like to ask for that special treatment. Get that. What I said also, though, was the purpose of this was structural. Wanted to give it a try because we felt like it was overall going to do far more good than harm. And what I would ask of the board is if rather than deferring this or changing it or altering it in this particular time frame for our spring startup, if the board does not want us to charge the $25 registration fee, I'd like you to vote on it, and then we can adapt and carry on with our registration process minus the fee.
So I just had one more, just a comment. I was in a meeting yesterday afternoon and there was a person in the meeting that lives in Nanaimo. Nanaimo must be doing the same thing. She has a child that rides the bus and they're coming in with a fee of some type. And she said her daughter was only using the bus once or twice a week, but because this fee is coming in, she's now saying, and it will be for next year, that she needs to ride the bus every day. There won't be any messing around, that she'll make good use of the bus because they need the bus. And she realizes that it may not end up being there if it's not being utilized properly. So I just, you know, I took that into consideration and it was just very coincidental. Anyways, thank you, everybody.
I think we have a very reasonable bus fee. For trustees who are reading the daily news feed, Central Okanagan, I believe it has just raised their bus fees, annual bus fee to over $360, and for out of catchment or cross boundary kids to 440, I think it was. So we are very reasonably priced at $125. So just to get this on the table, everybody has pretty much had a chance to speak. I'll move a motion that a $25 per bus application fee is with a maximum of 2 per family be instituted in the bus transportation system. Could I have a seconder, please? Seeing no appetite for a second, then I would suggest this is not on the table, and staff, you have either another place to look to or other ways and means, and through Fins and Ops might come to us with how this can be accommodated. So thank you, trustees, for that discussion. That's great. We'll move on to educational programs update, and Associate Superintendent and Director of Instruction Terpstra. Who goes first? Who's second? You guys make the choice.
I like to steal his thunder so I don't get usurped. Good evening, everyone. And again, we had a fulsome report at the Ed Committee, and I'll refer you to Trustee Austin's outstanding report. Couple additions. I'm happy to announce that through our careers department and our Skills Canada competition has been completed, and we had 2 of our students actually qualify at the provincial level in gold and silver from our elementary schools, which is outstanding. Huge thanks to teachers, Mr. Govin and Ms. Mostad, for supporting our students and families to get to Abbotsford to enter into that competition. Also, along with the Deepak's announcement of the Soji evening tomorrow night. We are also using the same keynote speaker, former teacher in our district, Misha Oak, to do Soji lead training on May 4th. And I've sent that information to trustees, and you're welcome to attend. Many of you are already responded to that. And we're also, we've also extended our invitation to some of our health partners as well. So it's going to be a great learning afternoon. Around the reporting agenda, I just want to say the assessment, evaluation, communicating student learning committee met last night, and really focus of our discussion was the new reporting order, and specifically how we're going to report to parents on individual student goal setting and core competency. So that's been a great fulsome conversation, both at the high school and elementary levels, and really talking about how are we going to do that? How are we going to encourage students to set goals around core competencies, and then collect data and show their parents how that's going. So that's been very good. And last thing, learning event coming up again around assessment and reporting. We've got a team of 5 of our secondary educators going to Cowichan School District to gather together with people from all over the province on really focus on secondary assessment and how other districts are going to respond to the new reporting order, and to share ideas and solidify our go forward this fall. And that's all from me.
Thanks, Director Terpstra, and Ms. Wilson.
I'd like to echo Rudy's comment around our education report. You've upped the ante there, Trustee Austin. It's a pleasure to read the highlights of that report. One of the things that I'd like to draw everybody's attention for a save the date is June the 19th, when we will be doing our learning grant celebration. There'll be an email coming out onto the where and the how. We're just securing a location that will be something that we can enjoy and celebrate the great learning and the work that teachers are doing in our district around the learning grants, but it is June the 19th. We have a team going over next week to the ministry-sponsored mental health session. I don't have the agenda yet, but it is 2 days. And in previous years, it's been great learning to look at what trends are happening in the province and also identify some of the amazing resources. So there's a team going over from our district. We have our social worker, we have a counselor, we have a teacher, and we have a support staff and a principal going, sorry. There was a great group that went over to the BCSSA session last Friday. We had about 10 or 11 people alongside Mr. Terpstra that was learning with Jo Kroner and some of the work that she's doing in the district. So can't wait to hear that group report back and share their learning with us. It's always great to hear what's happening and how we can improve our practices with different areas. The capstone projects happened at Ballina Secondary School, and I understand some trustees went. I popped in the school on Friday morning. That's the learning that our grade 12s do as part of the graduation requirements. And so it's always really impressive what they come up with. And it's a passion area for them that they want to learn more about. And they do a demonstration of what that learning looks like in whichever capacity they feel that they want to do to model that learning. I can't not mention Pete the cat. I know it was a huge success. Mr. Superintendent Jory got to meet Pete, the real big Pete with the big head, and he actually had both same colored shoes on. So if you've not read any of his books, you'll get that. And kiddos were really enjoying what was going on. What was the most impressive part was the number of community agencies that just band together and support our families and share what they can do to support them in our community. Want to acknowledge the work of our early learning table that's ran through OBLT, and then also want to acknowledge the work that Sheila Spanlip did and Denise Spensadal did on behalf of our district to contribute, and our kindergarten teachers that were there and did a little activity, but kids were engaged. Not sure whether we were big enough space, so that's our point of feedback. It was very loud in there and very busy, which is a good problem to have. And so we are reflecting on what the space should look like and whether it was a little squished. Grade sevens, we have our health conference happening on May the 10th. We are working on our very own published booklet that the kids are going to get. I don't know whether you can see it because I've got my my blur vision on, but we're giving them a little booklet which is new for us this year, and it's got some information about the topics that we're talking about. Want to acknowledge the work of our counseling team. It's been circulating for the last couple of months in terms of what should we add to this little booklet for kids to take with them, and listing the resources and some things that they can either scribble on and draw on, as well as make notes for what they're learning. We're trying to put technology to it as well, and putting some QR links to some of the resources that will be online. So we do treat it like a conference for them. We've got some great keynote speaker coming from Safer Schools. We've got one of our counselors who actually see online here tonight, who's connected us with somebody that will talk to our youth around sleep and having technology next to them. We've got our community partners talking around the Island Health coming. We've got Discovery, which is drug and alcohol. We're talking about vaping. We have some conversations around anxiety, and we have some conversations about anti-racism and microaggressions. We also have our usual panel of high school students that are going to have that conversation with our grade sevens about what it looks like to be going to high school. So that's our quick report that we have for. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to acknowledge is that, and I think Madam President mentioned it, it's a time of change right now. And I do acknowledge that as we work on planning for next year, it does introduce change. And we know that teachers are always curious about where they're going to be next year if they're in temporary assignments. And so really want to acknowledge not just, and I know Ms. Brown talked about it for QP in terms of the changes, but it is a time where we're planning this year and wanting to celebrate the learning that's occurred. But we also know that it's looking forward into next year. And it is a time where people are curious where they're going to be, which creates worry and wonder for our staffs as well. So I want to just acknowledge that.
Thanks, Ms. Wilson, Associate Superintendent Wilson. Are there any comments, trustees, about the presentation? Okay, going forward, I turn the meeting over to Trustee Young. Now the Finance and Operations Committee of the whole report, and you have a recommendation coming forward this evening.
I do. That the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum support the final planning required and direct staff to proceed with the building of a 6-lane track at Bolinas Secondary School.
So moved by Trustee Young. Could I have a seconder, please? Trustee Austin. Are there any?
Yeah, I can speak to it for a second.
Got Trustee Austin. and
Okay,
Berlin first, or do you want to speak to it first?
it's fine.
Okay, Trustee Austin.
Okay, Elaine could have spoken to it because she might have answered to it. I'm very excited to finally see, movement on the track, and that's kudos to all of the great work of the steering committee. So thank you so much, everybody. My only thing about the motion is I'm wondering if we could do a little friendly to it, because I understand from the finance and ops meeting that money is committed from the city, but it's not official because it hadn't come out in their approved minutes yet. So I'm wondering if we could add the friendly amendment that says something like, I don't know, conditional on final approval from the city of Parksville or something, because that was a big chunk of change. We want to make sure that that's absolutely official and there.
I think we need to signal that we want to go ahead with this and be quite emphatic, and I think this gives us City of Parksville support for their motion to come forward and be approved in their minutes to start doing conditions on conditions of, between two organizations. I'm not sure as it would be a benefit. I think they as much look to us as to say that this is a go and we're on board with it and we're on a go. And I think it's better to make it very clean and crisp. as a
Okay,
motion.
no, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
Trustee Kurland.
That trustee Austin, she took the words right out of my mouth. This is
Okay,
exactly what I was thinking, so.
okay. Trustee Young, then trustee Kellogg, and then superintendent Jory.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to stress here is that I think we need to move forward and say what our intent is in a clear way. And this is exactly what the steering committee voted to do. The only thing is, it's actually a 6-lane flat track, but I think that, you know, we know what we're talking about. And I just think it's really important to be crisp and clean and put our support behind what we've wanted for a number of years now, which is a 6-lane flat track that will be open to the community as well as to all of our students.
Thanks, trustee Young. Yeah, a lot of work has a lot of water under the bridge with the work that needs to be done for this. And so it's a great time. Trustee Kellogg.
I just wanted to say thank you to the organizers of the track committee and thank you for all your hard work. I think the community is so fortunate, and also this district to have a beautiful 6-lane track for all our students to use. I just think they are very lucky. So thank you to the committee.
Wholehearted support, I think, around the room. So the mover and a seconder has been given. Question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, trustee Young. And then we await now the approval and further letter of communications with the city of Parksville. I believe May 1st is their next meeting.
May 1st is their next meeting, and I know from informal conversations that they would love this to happen sooner rather than later.
Okay, policy committee of the whole. Trustee Kellogg, you have a number of items this evening, so I'll let you proceed with page 44 to 46 in your package, folks. Revisions to admin policy or admin procedures to board policy 105. Go for it, trustee Kellogg.
Well, wasn't that for me to read?
Yep, keep going.
Okay, so are we on B then?
No, oh, sorry, stole your thunder. Didn't mean to.
So shall we vote on that?
Sorry, no, I
Carry
need
on, Chair.
a seconder. Moved by me, sorry, my apologies. Seconder, trustee Kellogg. Of the policy committee. Questions, trustees? Trustee Young.
Yeah, I just want to get this clear. I thought our decision was that administrative procedures came to the board just for information. And that they are the purview of the
No, sorry.
senior management.
Yeah,
So
no,
I think this is just an information item.
Yeah,
It
you're
is.
correct. You're
Just
correct.
clearly information. Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, my pages ran on and didn't have a B, so I thought it was otherwise. So my
That's it.
photocopying didn't print out well. So I
Okay.
don't. So
I'm
all
gonna
that
get-
information, and we don't need a vote, so trustee Kellogg, take over. Better for you.
Okay, item B. Recommendation that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum approve the first reading to adopt the revision of the Board Policy 106 financial reporting at its regular board meeting of April 25th, 2023.
And a seconder, trustees. Thank you, trustee Young. Questions, trustees? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. And board policy 900.
Recommendation that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum approve the first reading to adopt Board Policy 900, privacy management and accountability, and its 2 attendant administrative procedures at its regular board meeting of April 25th, 2023.
And a seconder, trustees. Seconder, thank you, trustee Young. Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. And the board
The-
policy 502.
Field experiences, recommendation that the Board of Education of School District 69 approve third and final reading to adopt the revision of Board Policy 502, field experience trips, and its attendant administrative procedures as its regular board meeting of April 25th, 2023.
And the seconder, trustees. Thank you, trustee Young. Questions, trustees? Thank you, trustee Austin. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. If this is just repeating actually that what I said at the policy committee of the whole, and that I am not comfortable with, I'm trying to find it here and having to go through so much, with the line about the superintendent, but delegates that authority to the superintendent, which is number 3 under guiding principles. I still believe that this is of so much importance that it should come to the board. Again, the majority of the boards in BC, that is how their international trips are done. And that is just my comfort level. So because of that, I would prefer this policy to be revisited.
Thank you, trustee Austin. Any other comments, trustees? I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Carried. And contrary minded? Trustee Austin. Thank you. And final board policy 508 career ed. Trustee Kellogg.
Recommendation that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum approve the third and final reading to adopt policy 508, career education, its attendant administrative procedure to its regular board meeting of April 2023.
And seconder, please, trustees. Thank you, trustee Kurland. Seeing no hands raised for questions, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, trustee Kellogg. Another fine meeting. We're plugging ahead, obviously, because we've got 3 or 4 of these items every meeting, so this is good. Education Committee of the Whole, trustee Austin, your report, yes, I echo comments before it. It was a wonderful read, pleasure to read, including pictures and artwork and links and things, and it's great fun. So would you like to add any additional comments to your report?
No, other than we'll probably do some sharing at the Ed committee, but at the time of writing the report, the climate change symposium hadn't taken place. It has since taken place. And all I can say is it was a wonderful event. The students did an amazing organizational job. The speakers were phenomenal to listen to. I learned a lot. And so just, it was a really, really wonderful event.
Thanks, trustee Austin. And that's a segue then into, we don't have any reports from representative organizations, trustee items, and my apologies, trustee Kurland. I didn't insert your item at the approval of the agenda, but I could take, I think, the liberty now to have you speak to the symposium and the action of the board that you wish to have us all agree to. So trustee Kurland, the KSS Climate Action Symposium.
KSS Climate Action Symposium. It was a truly inspiring event, especially for an old dog like me. And I just walked out of there feeling like there was some hope for the future, because these students are so dedicated to what they're doing, and it was such a meaningful afternoon. Can't thank those people enough. I'd like the if we can, I'd like the board to thank Carolyn Mateus and her students by sending a card, or however we do it, but they need to be thanked for their work, for what they've done. And that's my suggestion, that we do that.
And I think maybe if we conclude, because I also attended Carolyn and Ben Leggett. Ben was quite on site with the kids, but gave a good stand at the back, make sure they figured out, and I looked, we had a little technical glitch at one point. And I think Dr. Jory was standing beside me and the speakers went shrill, shrieked. I thought they were gonna explode. And then turned to him and said, I hope the budget can replace the speaker system here at the Qualicum Civic Center. 'Cause it was ear piercing, whatever happened, but they had behind the scenes laptop stuff going to link via Zoom. The speakers, and they had to juggle so much, and they just were so adept to it, and it was wonderful.
Very cool.
It was a great performance. Carol, Trustee Kellogg, and then Trustee Young.
So I've already sent an email, but I think that would be a great idea to send a card, a thank you card. I think that would be well appreciated by the students. I wanted to say that the fellow that was handling all the laptops and speakers and all of that equipment, he actually last year was the manager, one of the managers at the theater here, and he handled all that stuff. So he's a super capable guy, and I was really impressed, and I learned things. And yeah, I felt really good leaving there as well. So it was a really, really lovely event.
Yeah. Trustee Young.
Yeah, I was sad to have to miss it, and I actually missed it twice because there was also the evening one that I wanted to get to and couldn't. I do recall though that Trustee Flynn and I were at a really inspirational gathering last year, and I can't say enough. For years I've been saying, all teachers need to do is move over and let the kids do it. And I'm seeing more and more that is absolutely the case. So I am totally in favor of sending off a card to whoever, we think is important in terms of doing the organization. The other thing is, just to tag on to that, is I was at the Capstone Projects. I spent 2 hours there the other morning at Bolinas, and that was just amazing. But the night before, they had their first annual art show, and it also was the same night as the KSS celebration of music and art. So I chose to go to the Bolinas one because it was their first one. Again, totally organized by the students, and it was awesome. And I just, wow, students, you guys are so fabulous. There's none of you here, but maybe you'll hear it when you get really, really bored and want to have something to go to sleep by, and you can listen to our meeting. Anyway, it's fabulous work. Thank you.
I might ask indulgence on the board to do a letter to the two teacher leads, but to each of the students on the leadership committees. There was 5 from KSS, I believe it was, that were the lead team and the group facilitators, and 3 from Bolinas. And so a total of 6, 7, 8 letters to them, because it might be nice in their files or their portfolios or whatever, rather than just the teachers. So a little twist on that. Barry, is that okay? Trustee Kurland?
Yeah, I said Carolyn and the students. I did say that.
Okay, so I'll do some homework and runs a draft something by everybody to the 2 senior teacher supports, as well as all of the kids that participated in the leadership part and framing the program, etc. So we're getting close to the end here. No new or unfinished business. There's no correspondence. Got a lot of blank screens here with black behind those screens. Does anybody have any questions?
Be nice to see some of those faces, but hey, Matt.
Seeing none. Oh, there's Roberta.
Hey, great,
Long
good to
time no
see you.
Roberta. Long time no see.
Oh,
Okay, seeing no questions from our gathered folk, could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Trustee Kellogg. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and it's still light out. Woohoo! Okay,